I didn't plan it. I never wanted it. But there I was, his body beneath mine, his breath ragged in my ear, and the world spinning on its axis with a force I couldn't control. His skin was warm, too warm against me. I could feel the rapid pulse in his chest, the same heartbeat I hated for reasons I didn't understand, thudding so loud I thought it might drown me. My hands were shaking too, I realized, but not out of fear. The rage, the anger, everything I had built up to keep him at a distance, was slipping away, and in its place, something darker was taking root. Something I couldn't name. He shifted under me, muscles tightening like a bowstring, eyes flashing with something between defiance and desperation. God, I hated him. I had to hate him. We were supposed to be enemies. That's what we'd always been. Not just rivals, not just competitors, but enemies. From the first time we crossed paths, we were never meant to be anything but that. We fought for every single thing. The same scholarships, the same awards, the same attention, the same respect. And it was always me trying to outdo him one step ahead. Always winning. Always proving I was better. But right now, in the silence between our gasping breaths, the world was flipped on its head. His body, taut, lean, and built like a fighter, was under mine, responding to every movement I made, every shift of my weight. And yet, I wasn't even in control anymore. Every inch of him, every breath, every touch, was a sharp electric shock racing through me, pulling me deeper into the very thing I swore I'd never let myself fall into. His lips, as unrelenting as his stare, parted, and the word damn slipped from his mouth, half a growl, half a prayer. I wasn't sure if he was speaking to me or to himself, but when his hand shot out, grabbed my wrist, and yanked it against his chest, I felt it. The thrum of his pulse, the desperation in his fingers digging into my skin. He was as trapped as I was. And then my mouth, my damning mouth, betrayed me. I kissed him. There was no plan, no thought, just the pull of something primal, something messy and ugly that made my chest ache with guilt and longing in equal measure. His lips tasted like salt, like the sweat from the game, like all the anger we'd thrown at each other for years. And yet, there was something else there. Something that tasted like ruin. A bitterness I couldn't wipe away. He kissed me back, though I wasn't sure if that made it worse or better. His teeth scraped against my bottom lip, sharp, like he was marking me, claiming me in some way. And I hated him for it. I hated him for making me want this. He moved under me again, and I could feel him, feel the tension, the hard muscles of his body tightening with every inch of space we tried to close. We had always been opposites, fire and ice, passion and control. And now, in this tangled mess of bodies and desires, the lines between us blurred. I broke away first. His breath caught as I pulled back, and for the briefest moment, I saw something in his eyes I wasn't prepared for. Vulnerability. But it was gone as quickly as it had come, replaced by that familiar, cold mask. But something shifted inside of me. I couldn't get away from it. Not from him. Not from the heat that burned in my veins, making my thoughts scatter. "You don't get to do that," I said, the words barely a whisper between us. I was trying to hold on to the remnants of my pride. Trying to piece back together the image of the man I had built for years, the one who had always been in control, the one who couldn't be touched. But there was nothing left to hold on to. I had already fallen. His eyes locked on mine, challenging, daring me to turn away. "I never asked for this, Bryce. But it's happening." I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to acknowledge that every time he said my name, every time his hand brushed against mine, I felt it. The flicker of something I couldn't control, something I was afraid to name. I hated him, but I needed him, more than I needed my own damn pride. And that terrified me. His lips found mine again, bruising and demanding, like everything he'd ever kept buried inside him was being poured into me in that moment. I didn't pull away. Couldn't. The kiss was different this time. Deeper, harder, more desperate. I couldn't tell if we were trying to claim each other or destroy each other. But it didn't matter. I needed him, and I hated myself for it. The line between hate and love, it was thinner than I had ever imagined. So thin, in fact, that it was almost impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. I pulled away again, gasping for air, trying to clear the fog in my mind, trying to think. But I couldn't. He let me touch him. And now I was addicted, and I hated him for it, because now I needed it again, and again. And I didn't know how to want something that was destroying me. It was just a game. At least that's what I kept telling myself. But when he hit me, there was nothing just about it. We were tangled up in the heat of the court. Fast, brutal, all elbows and knees, as if we were at war and not playing for a trophy. But when his elbow collided with my mouth, it felt personal. It wasn't the roughness of the game. No, this was intentional. The sharpness of his strike left me tasting metal in my mouth. Blood, thick and salty. I wiped it off with my wrist, glaring at him through the sweat and the sharp sting of pain. He smirked. The bastard smirked, like he'd scored some point I didn't understand, like he was in control of something bigger than the game. I should have yelled at him, should have gotten up and shoved him back. I should have let the referee see the injury, demanded a foul, a warning. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed there, rooted to the spot, staring into his eyes. The same dark, arrogant eyes that had become the source of every angry thought I had. The whistle blew, but it felt miles away. The game continued, but it might as well have been silent. I couldn't tear my gaze away from him. We finished the game, his team winning, of course, and I thought that was the end of it. The bruise on my lip, the blood in my mouth, would heal, and I'd forget about him. But when I walked into the locker room, the sound of the shower water masking the tension in the air, I didn't expect to see him there. He was standing in the corner, towel slung low around his waist, and his gaze was already on me. No words, just that stare. I thought I'd hate him in that moment. Hate him for everything he had been, everything he'd done. But instead, I couldn't move. Something in the air shifted, and the tension that had been building between us was palpable, thick. I turned toward my locker, pretending I hadn't noticed him, pretending I wasn't burning up under the weight of his stare. But I couldn't escape the feeling that he was closing the distance between us. Silently, dangerously. And then he was there, in front of me. He didn't say anything. Not a single word. He just stood there, and I could feel the heat coming off him. Like he knew the game wasn't over. It had only just begun. And that's when I felt it. The cold, wet pressure of his finger on my split lip. He traced it gently, like he was taking in the damage he'd caused. There was something intensely intimate about it. The blood wasn't just blood anymore. It was a marker, a reminder of how much he'd made me bleed, how much I was still willing to bleed for him. His finger slid away, and my breath hitched in my chest, expecting him to pull away completely. But he didn't. Instead, he leaned in, slow, deliberate, and pressed his lips to mine. It wasn't soft. It wasn't gentle. It was raw. I don't know why I didn't push him away. Maybe I wanted to taste the blood on his lips. Maybe I wanted to feel something other than anger. I don't know what it was. But in that moment, I let him kiss me. And it was enough to make me forget everything else. When he pulled away, there was no smirk, no challenge in his eyes, just something darker, like he knew this wasn't just about the game anymore. And I hated it. I hated how much I wanted more. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he kissed me, the way his touch felt, like it belonged to me. I tried to shake it off, tried to force my mind back to the game, back to the aggression and the competition. But it kept coming back. And when I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of him. Not in a typical way, not the way I'd imagined rivals before. This time, I was holding him down, my hands wrapped around his throat, squeezing until his eyes rolled back in his head. But in the dream, he moaned. The sound wasn't one of pain. No, it was something else. Something that made my blood run hotter. It wasn't a fantasy of revenge. It was a desire I couldn't quite understand. And I woke up with a burning ache I couldn't ignore. I wanted to choke him, to break him. But I also wanted him to break me. Couldn't breathe. Not when he looked at me like that. Like I was a puzzle, a challenge, something to tear apart and bury under his skin. There was no crowd, no court, no coaches yelling at us, demanding we play to win. There was just us. And the tension, the one we pretended wasn't real, pretending it was just a game, just rivalry, just the heat of competition. But that night, everything we'd buried rose to the surface. He didn't touch me. Not yet. But I felt the pressure of his gaze like it was a physical weight. His eyes, those dark, predatory eyes, studied me, peeled me open layer by layer. Every inch of me, every flaw, every desire, laid bare in that look. I could feel the tremor in my chest, the way my heart stuttered and my breath faltered. There was nothing in the room but us and that look. That dangerous, hungry look that made my stomach twist with something I couldn't name. Something I didn't want to admit. I was about to turn away, to break the eye contact and walk out, to act like I wasn't affected by his gaze. But I couldn't. My feet were rooted to the floor. My body wanted to lean into him, to let him pull the strings that had been tied tight inside me for far too long. Then, without a word, without a single movement that gave anything away, he took a step closer. My body reacted before my mind could stop it. His hand came up, slowly, almost casually, like this wasn't a moment of sheer destruction waiting to happen. But when his fingers brushed the edge of my shirt, I couldn't stop the shiver that ran through me. His touch was light, just enough to make me ache for more, but he didn't press any harder. He didn't need to. His eyes never left mine as he leaned in closer, and I could feel the heat of his body, the way his breath hitched in the air between us. Every inch of him screamed control. Control over me, over this moment, over everything. And I hated it. I hated how much I wanted it. How badly I craved it. Bryce! His voice was a low rasp, a whisper that was somehow loud enough to rip through the tension. His hand didn't move, but it hovered there on my chest, just above my heart. I was barely breathing now. I couldn't tell if I was going to explode or collapse. Either way, I wasn't sure I had any strength left to fight it. To fight him. His gaze softened. Just enough for me to see a flicker of something that wasn't calculated or cruel. There was something raw there. Something real. Without breaking our stare, his hand finally moved. He slid it down, ever so slowly, down to the hem of my shirt. The sensation was like fire spreading across my skin. A slow burn that made me want to rip the fabric off myself and feel him. Really feel him. But I didn't move. I didn't push him away. I didn't run. Instead, I leaned in. God help me, I leaned in. I tilted my head slightly, just enough to close the distance between our mouths. My breath mingled with his, shallow and uneven, and I could feel the weight of everything we hadn't said, everything we hadn't acknowledged. This wasn't just about the game. It wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about surrender. I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to give in, to let go, to fall apart in his hands. And damn, I almost did. But then, just as quickly as he'd closed the space, he pulled back. Not a physical pull, but an emotional one. A twist of power. He wasn't done. Not yet. And I hated him for it. "You're not ready," he said quietly, his voice tight. There was no mocking in it, no smugness. Just truth. I wasn't ready. Not for this. Not for him. Not for what was waiting on the other side of that line we'd just crossed. But as he stood there, his body so close that I could feel the heat rolling off him, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't ready. But I was damn sure about to find out what would happen if I was. I used to think hate was simple, that it meant avoidance, anger, distance. It used to be clear-cut. No gray areas, no moments of weakness, just a straightforward line drawn between me and him. But hate had started looking a lot different. It looked like wet breath against my ear in the dark. Like the heat of his skin against mine in the locker room, the way his fingers would burn through the fabric of my shirt, like he could claim me just by touching me. It looked like bruises, small, invisible marks from secret meetings in places we weren't supposed to be, and the bite marks on my skin, hidden beneath my jersey, that I could still feel throbbing, like reminders of things I couldn't undo. And worst of all, it looked like longing. Hate wasn't hatred anymore. Hate had turned into this want, this need for him I couldn't seem to fight. Every glance, every brush of his hand, every time his voice dropped that low rasp in my ear, hate slipped further away and something else took its place. Something dangerous. When he pulled away from me that night, his eyes wide with guilt, something in me shattered. The wall I'd been building for months, brick by brick, cracked open. I saw him, the real him, the one who wasn't playing games. The one who, in that moment, wasn't the cocky, arrogant asshole I'd hated for so long. I almost begged him to stay. I almost whispered, "Stay." But my pride, my damn pride swallowed the words whole. I watched him, silently, as he turned, as his back became a wall I couldn't break through. The guilt in his eyes was raw, real. He knew I wanted something more, and he knew he had the power to tear me apart with one more touch, one more word. But he walked away anyway, like I wasn't enough. I let him go. The moment he left, I collapsed against the door, my breath catching in my throat. My hands gripped the door frame like I could hold myself together if I just kept my hands there, anchored to something solid. But nothing felt solid anymore. Cursing my own heart, I slid down the door, my knees giving out beneath me. There was no anger now, no hatred, just emptiness, and a hunger I didn't know how to satisfy. I cursed him. I cursed me. I cursed the stupid, damned-up game we were playing where neither of us could win. But the truth was, I didn't want to hate him anymore. Not when the thought of him walking out the door felt like a knife in my chest. I didn't want to hate him, but I didn't know how to stop. I leaned my head against the door, eyes closing as the silence in the room pressed in around me. I couldn't hear the sounds of the world outside anymore. The only sound that mattered was the pounding of my own heart, beating for a man who had walked away from me. And that was the worst part of it all. Because as much as I tried to pretend I hated him, deep down I knew I couldn't hate him anymore. He whispered it once. My name. Soft. Like it hurt him to say it. And maybe it did. Because for 2 years, we've clawed at each other like wolves. But in that quiet second, in that dark hotel room where the only light came from the moon bleeding through the curtains, he said my name like it meant something. Like it was permission. Or a prayer. I turned around and looked at him. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to admit it. I wanted him. All of him. Even the parts that would ruin me.